Pediatric Speech Sister Show live. I am so thankful to have my guest on here today, Jada Augustine. Jada is actually one of my classmates from graduate school, and she has just been such a sister. I low key could give her some of the credit for the pediatric speech sister because we were the ones who just kept calling each other sister in
I
graduate
love
school.
that.
So I want to give her a fabulous introduction as she deserves, and then we'll talk about why we're even here today. So Jada is the founder and CEO of Jada's Got Your Backpack. I am actually wearing the Beyond the Label shirt today. In Los Angeles, Miss Augustine is a philanthropist first and a speech pathologist second. I love that. She's taken on roles such as being a mentor and supervisor for the University of West Indies, St. Augustine, located in the one and only Trinidad and Tobago. Miss Augustine is currently a PhD student at the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA, and California State Los Angeles, CSULA. Her goal is to do extensive research on how to effectively serve minority families who have children with special needs. So, Jada, I brought you on today because, first of all, I just came back from Belize with you, so I'll be excited to get to that
Yes.
today. But I just have always admired your work and the service that you've done with children in Belize for children in Belize. You've
Mhm.
had your nonprofit since I've known you in graduate school, and it has grown to where you are doing volunteer services for children in Belize. So I wanted to learn how we can be more culture responsive, especially when it comes to autism treatment. When I had you in 2021, we both agreed that there's such a big stigma when it
Yeah.
comes to autism in Caribbean communities. And so I think that it is our job as speech therapists, within our scope, of course, to counsel them. And I think that you'd be the one to kind of help us with that a bit more in depth. Is there anything that I missed in the intro?
No, I think that's perfect. Thank you.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, can you tell us a little bit about your why? Why you became a speech pathologist and why you
Mhm.
keep doing what you do now?
Why? Okay. Well, thank you for the introduction. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody that's watching. I'm not like a interviewer, but I'm going to try my best to answer all the questions. My why, I actually have, I have to explain this question a lot, like in my PhD program, like when it comes to like my research, and they always want to know the background of the researcher, right? So my why is actually I wanted to be a special education teacher. Um, I obviously didn't go that route. I went the speech route, but initially I wanted to do that. And I decided to become a speech language pathologist because I saw that this route was where I can impact. You can impact them both, but I was really, really into what you can do. And I loved that it was a little smaller. It wasn't like a whole classroom and all that good stuff. And the why behind it is because I really love special ed kids. I've always loved special needs children. Like from a young age, I've always had like motherly instincts. I'm not a mom yet, but I just always love being around kids and they love being around me as well. So it makes my job easier. So my why is because I just genuinely love the population. Like there's not like a big intricate, I just genuinely just love the population and I love working with them and seeing them progress in any way. Like the smallest strides doesn't matter to me. Small, big, medium, like I just love working with the special education like population. So that's my why. Yeah.
Well, thank you for all you do, Jada. As you're talking, I'm thinking about how you were the go-to person in our cohort. We didn't have an autism class. They have it now, actually, by the way.
Oh wow,
I
okay.
really wish
Finally.
that.
That's good.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we can thank Dr. Rice for that. She advocated for that a little bit.
Oh, I
But
love that.
yeah, but we didn't have an autism class in our cohort, and so you were the go-to person
I
actually
know.
when it came to all things autism. And so I want to ask you, I mean, let's just go ahead and jump into the interview questions.
Hmm.
Why Beyond the Label and why Data's Got Your Backpack? Can you give us some background about your brands?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll start with Jada's Got Your Backpack because that was like the first phase, right? So in 2015, 2016, I had the opportunity to study abroad in Cambodia. Um, I went to California State University, Long Beach for undergrad. And I always heard people, saying, "Oh, I'm going to study abroad. I'm going to do this." I was like, okay, I'm going to study abroad, but I'm going to find somebody else to help me fund it. And I did find somebody to help me like fund it. And while doing that, I got accepted and got scholarships, all that good stuff. So I was able to study abroad for that summer in 2015 in Cambodia. And while in Cambodia, I was just so touched. I was like, oh my gosh, I love how I'm able to give back. And the premises of the class was taking an art class. I am not an artist. I do not know any art. The kids had better art than I did, but we were able to work in an orphanage. And we also were able to work with some special needs kids. And I really, really enjoyed it. So that kind of helped me want to start Jada's Got Your Backpack. But like the biggest, like, how'd you say, like the biggest thing that happened was actually when I went to Belize, I saw this lady and she was packing backpacks. And I was like, what is she doing? Like, she had big barrels, like these big barrels. And I'm like, why is she putting all these backpacks and school supplies in there? My aunt was like, oh, she goes and gives it to a village every year before school starts. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I want to do that. And then my aunt, she did say, she was like, well, I want you to focus on school, Jada. And I was like, I could focus on school and do this. And I think she kind of, her saying that kind of pushed me to want to even do it more. I don't know if it's a little bit of my ego, but I mean, it helped. And I just saw how expensive the backpacks were in Belize and the school supplies, and how a lot of kids in Belize didn't have access to the proper supplies. And it made me angry. So my anger turned into be starting a nonprofit, which is crazy, right? Like just a little glimpse of somebody else doing great, things made me want to do something like for the community. And I called my close friends, still my close friends to this day, and I said, if I started like a backpack drive just 1 year, would you guys support me? And they're like, of course, we'll support you. So I got back home. And when I got back home, this girl that was in my class, her name is Arissa. Shout out to Arissa. She had 3 backpacks for me filled with like school supplies and toys. And she even like wrote a letter. And I always tell Arissa, like, you are the start to my nonprofit, because maybe if no one had given me a backpack, I would probably not even like think about it too much. I would have been like, ah. But when she gave me the backpack, like I had this airy feeling. I was like, oh my gosh, wow. I convinced some people to give me some backpacks. Maybe I'll convince more. And I was known as the girl on campus that had like Dora the Explorer backpack. I had all backpacks on me. I didn't care. And I was a child development major as well. I mean, minor. I was going to double major, but I ended up moving it to my minor. So, child development, I got a lot of backpacks from those people. So that's how Jada's Got Your Backpack started. Studying abroad, going to Belize right after, seeing somebody do like their own initiative, a little bit of anger, and then it just started into like a big nonprofit maybe like a year later. I didn't found my nonprofit stuff right away. It took me about like almost a year to a year and a half. Yeah. So that's Jada's Got Your Backpack. That's like that's their that own story. And then
Beyond.
Beyond the Label. Beyond the Label started in class at Howard.
Tell me more.
Because we had a private practice class, and in the private practice class, we had to do an assignment. And I wanted to name my private practice.
Wow.
And it's, I don't have a private practice, but it is a private practice pretty much in Belize. It's not for pay. But yeah, we did the project. I had to outline everything. And I was like, ooh, oh, I like that name, Beyond the Label. I'm going to keep it. And I wanted to give services to kids in Belize. And I always used to joke to my family in Belize, like, maybe one day I'll go back to Belize and become the speech pathologist there, become really known. And I used to just giggle about it with my cousins or whatever and just not think about it. And then you actually, the power of the tongue, and my God, and God knew what he was doing for me. And he knew that that's like kind of the path he wanted me to be on. But I just joked about it because I could never see myself doing it. So for me, it's very humbling. But yeah, I started in that private practice class.
Wow.
Started there. Um, the first initial, I wanted to start Beyond the Label in 2020, but we had just graduated. I don't know, I was being like an overachiever, and I wanted to start like a pilot program. Failed completely, like it failed. I just never talked about it. I had people in our cohort, in the cohort before us, I kind of gave them a glimpse of me wanting to do it, but then like they didn't hear from me for a couple months because I was kind of sad that it didn't go through, and I was like hurt, a little bit about it. So it failed the first year. And then the second year, Janicia, shout out to Janicia. She's helped me out so much with Beyond the Label. She connected me to Christy, who is the head of Autism Belize. And from there, the story is like, it just keeps going. So just one person, like just believing you and connecting you to the right people. And that's how we started Beyond the Label. So a
Wow.
lot. It's like a lot. I'm trying to like simplify it, but yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah, I mean that whole story was beautiful, and I think that you captured it perfectly. And I also just want to say that I appreciate how you said how your anger fueled passion. You didn't say that exactly, but I feel like that was like pretty much
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
how,
Yeah.
your anger fueled passion and even activism. I think about, and just since we're on the topic of autism, I
Hmm.
was speaking to the students last year at Loyola University, and there are differences between different generations, terms that are acceptable and terms that are no longer acceptable. And
Right.
so there was one student who was just like, I was just so furious at my professor because she kept saying red flag, red flag, red flags. And
Mm.
we don't say that anymore because there's such a stigma to even that word. And I actually gave her that same advice, Jada. I'm like, you know what? If you're so angry about it,
Hmm.
use that for activism and advocacy. Like that's
Right.
exactly why you were angry about it. You're not angry about it just to be walking around mad and hate the
Exactly.
world. And so that's amazing how it's like that flame that you spoke out of your mouth and that you felt in your spirit created a whole nonprofit that has
Right.
really grown significantly. I remember you reached out
Yes.
to me last year about it, and now you have how many therapists at this point?
I have different therapists.
And
It
you have different
fluctuates.
therapists.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
The number fluctuates, right? Because people have their own lives, and
Mm,
some people are, wanting to settle down, have kids. But most of the time, I have like 7, 8 therapists a cohort, which is good enough for me. And some of them become supervisors. So them becoming supervisors helps me even more. And they also help grad students. So it's even, built up on that. But you're absolutely right. Anger, and I tell people this, you can use anger for good, right? It's
mhm,
just how you use it and how you channel it. I could have got angry with the situation, saw it, went back to LA and came back to my regular life, going to my undergrad, doing my own thing, but I didn't. I saw it as a way of, okay, this is the problem that's going on here in Belize. Let me be a part of the solution instead of me just complaining. I like solution based. If there's not a solution, baby, we can't talk. Let's find a.
mhm.
There's always a solution. It might not be the one you want to hear, but
Right.
there's always a solution. So yeah, that's how it
Yeah.
started. Not genuinely, not no little. Some people like to like sugarcoat their story. No, mine's is anger.
Yeah, you're like, I was
Yeah, I'm like, no.
I was actually really mad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say that I've met some people and they're interning with me now, and you are just such an I mean, I talk about Beyond the Label all of the time,
Oh, thank you.
but
I appreciate that.
I mean, of course, and they wanna start nonprofits. One, she is Jamaican,
Oh, I
and
love
so
that.
she wants to and she's first generation as well, like how you're first generation, and so she wants to start a nonprofit out in Jamaica, and I'm just like, "Okay, well, I just know who the person that you can talk to about that."
Right, right, right.
Yeah, so
Or
thank you
connecting her to like the right people, because even when I started my nonprofit, I'm going to be honest on here, because people ask me about that all the time in DMs. I don't know how it started. It was God. It was not Jada Augustine. There was no way. Somebody filed the paperwork for me, and the next week or 2 weeks after, it was Jada's got your backpack. So I genuinely just follow the steps he continued to tell me to do, but like the actual like process, I don't know, but I could connect them to like the right people. So I don't know like the like actual step by step. You know, some people
Right.
file it like themselves. I had somebody help me file it because I didn't know what to do. I was 20 at that time. Like I don't know what I'm
Yeah.
doing at 20. Like I'm just an undergrad, just trying to make it. So I
And
can.
go ahead and preach to us just a little bit about how you overcame that inner struggle, almost that imposter syndrome. Like, I mean, I'm
Yeah,
just a 20-year-old. What am I supposed to do? And even accepting someone else's help.
exactly. Well, I had met up with this woman. Her name is, I'm just shouting out people. Her name is Angela. And we met up in Inglewood at like a Starbucks or something. And she was just like, you know, I started my nonprofit. She actually does beauty. Like she is a makeup artist. So she does free makeup on cancer survivors and photo shoots and stuff like that for them to make them feel beautiful. You know
Mm.
what I mean? And I just loved her nonprofit. And she actually spoke at my first ever event. And I was connected to her from somebody else. LA is just a place where there's so many connections, right? And she was like, you know, Jada, I think you should start your nonprofit. I said, no, I shouldn't. I think I shouldn't. I'm scared. Like, I'm 20. I was going to turn 21. And I'm like, no, I can't do it. And she's like, no, you can. Just believe in yourself. You'll do really, really great. And she pushed me and she said, I can actually have you connect with the guy that helped me found my nonprofit, my 501c3. She's like, do you want to go? What if I call him? She's like, what if I call him right now? He picks up and then we go and we do it today. And I said, okay, let's see.
Okay. You're not going to say no.
I was like, okay, let's see. And he did pick up.
Oh,
And we did drive over
no.
there to like downtown Los Angeles. And he was like, what name are you thinking? And I was, Jada. I was like, Jada backpack. No, Jada's got your backpack. He was like, oh, that's a nice name. Let's do that. And he's like, let's go into like the inventory and make sure nobody has that name and blah blah blah. He's like, nobody has that name. That's a sign. And
Mm.
he's like, do you want me to file it? And I said, okay. And that's how it started. From a Starbucks little coffee date to going to downtown LA, and then 2 weeks later to having a nonprofit at 20. So I don't know. I grew with my nonprofit. Like, you know, like I grew up. Like, you know how teen parents grow up with their kids. I feel like I grew with my nonprofit,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? So there's many times that I feel like I've had imposter syndrome, but I just don't show it. I just try to be as confident as I can, but I'll come home and tell my mom, like, oh my God, they think so highly of me. Why? I don't even think like that. And she's like, no, you are great. Like, my parents are like, you are doing so great. So I just have a good support system. So when I would feel like an imposter, they would hype me up and, you know, tell me it's okay to feel that way. And they would validate my feelings, but they would also say, just keep pushing forward. So many people look up to you and you can do great things. So yeah,
Mm.
that's how I went through with it. Just growing up with my nonprofit. It's been 8 years. That's crazy.
When is the anniversary, by the way?
The anniversary is January 17th.
That's my birthday.
Yeah, I think it's January.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's crazy. I had no idea. We were
yeah,
meant to be friends.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I believe so. January 17th. Yeah. It's
Wow.
been that like it's January, but I had my event, my first ever event that week, and I'll never forget. So yeah. Hmm.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you for all you do. Well, I
Thank
know a lot of people
you.
here, and Jada, I mean, when we get on this call, I really let the guests lead a lot of the conversation. And sometimes I ask questions that are off script because I just know that
Right,
there's someone who needs to hear what you have to say.
right.
And also, I mean, even just speaking to you, I feel incredibly inspired. So I just want to take a second and thank you so much for coming on today and
Oh, thank you
inspiring
for having
people.
me.
There are ripple effects to the words that you're speaking today.
Yeah, yeah. They words are super powerful. I always say that from a biblical standpoint too, right? I'm
Mhm.
Christian as can be, and I love the Lord. Lord, thank you.
Yeah.
But words just speak life or death, and
Yeah.
I take that very seriously. So listen to people around you and have a good support system and believe in yourself. Like that's the first step. It sounds so cliche, but just believe in
It's
yourself.
just so yeah, it's real though. It
But
really
it really is real.
is.
Yeah.
Those big dreams, like having a nonprofit at the age of 20, and starting services in Belize while you're in Los Angeles and flying
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I grew up with it. I
out.
started it in undergrad as a junior, went to Howard and made, connections. And I actually did a little something at Howard with the graduate school, and I got backpacks from them. And now I'm at UCLA CSU, and my professors love it. And we're trying to see if my professors can go down to Belize one day and we can do a seminar in special ed. Like, it's literally been with me my whole academic
Yeah,
endeavors to the end. So
yeah,
yeah,
and
I
I'm
hope it inspires somebody to do it. Do it in other places. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I know that the Caribbean, and that's it's also why we're here today. I know that the Caribbean can really use more. I mean,
Yeah.
all services, but today we can talk a bit about speech pathology because that's our trade.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I was down in Belize, they were telling me how there's no formal speech pathology program, like
No.
graduate program, schooling, or anything like that. And so, of course, when families are immigrating to the US, where a lot of us are, we aren't necessarily trained. Yes, we have cultural competency classes. Most programs really just have maybe one class on it.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that it's a whole different ballgame with each culture. And so that's why I wanted to bring you on here, just someone who's Belizean American herself and who dedicates her practice to Caribbean people. And so the one thing I want to ask is, again, I know that we mentioned this before, how we know when it comes to Caribbean families, African families, there's such a big stigma of having autism.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about that stigma and how you, as a speech pathologist, can help parents come to acceptance with it?
Yes. And yes, there is a stigma, but it's getting better.
That's
The
good.
past 2 years, I've seen a lot of changes. I've seen people's attitudes change. And now, in Belize, they have Autism Belize. They have a couple of different programs that go to Belize and do parent trainings. So people aren't responding like they were responding before, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done when it comes to that. I think there's a stigma, especially with Caribbean culture. A lot of people may say, oh, you did something in a past life, or this is generational and now it's coming back to haunt you, or, things like that. Or they want to hide their kids because they feel like it's their fault. So they internalize it and keep them in the house and don't want other people to know about, the diagnosis, or they don't explain it. Then a lot of them feel helpless. Like, okay, I tell you that he has autism, but what does Belize have to offer me? Nothing. So what's the point of even talking about it? I'm just going to keep it to myself. So there's just a lot going on. And, a lot of them are just in desperate need of like encouragement and help and stuff like that. Um, One thing I loved your questions, and they actually made me like think. I was like,
Mhm.
okay, let me go see what I really feel about this. But one thing I personally do with the parents is active listening. I know it sounds so simple, but active listening, I let them like lead the conversation, and I let them tell me how they feel. And while they're telling me how they feel, I try to jot down some of the things that they keep saying. Because usually you're going to repeat over and over when you're really mad about something, you're going to keep saying this one thing over and over. So I usually try to, listen to their concerns and their frustrations and their questions. And if it takes me an hour and 30 minutes, I'll sometimes sit there that long. And I'm like, whoo, I have a lot of paperwork to do, but this is important for them because they need somebody to listen to them. You know what I mean? So I try to give them that opportunity to explain their feelings and not judge them. If they feel like that, if they do feel like, oh, it was a generation, who am I to tell them that's wrong? You get what I'm saying? That's a cultural thing. Who am I to tell you not, what to believe in? I would never tell somebody that. You know what I mean? But I will share like my clinical judgment. So that's what I do. Another thing that I do is educate. That's the big thing. Some people don't even know what autism is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they hear about autism from all different types of people. And my biggest enemy is Google.
Yeah.
Google could be good or bad, but Google could scare you to death if you do not use it like correctly, or you're just going through many articles and you don't know who wrote it, you know what I mean? And just some of, like you said, like the myths and people using old language like red flags, and then you're just reading all this and you're overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
You're genuinely overwhelmed. So that's another one. What's another? A modeling, like modeling techniques, stuff like that. You want me to go into more of them? I
Yeah, I mean, keep going. We're here to learn. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're here to learn from
um individualized like strategies. That is huge. Okay. So I'm gonna use our names, like Melanie, she may have autism and Jada may have autism, but we're two different people and we need two different strategies, and our families need two different strategies. We may both be Belizean, but that doesn't mean that we're the same. You know
you.
what I mean? And understanding that and seeing them as an individual and seeing the family as an individual, not everybody as like a one size fits all model.
Right.
And that's a mistake that a lot of like clinicians do. They're like, you're Belizean. Now my friend is Belizean, so y'all do this. No,
Mm-hmm.
that's not true, babe. Like we are two completely different people. So I try not to ask or look at the case history like prior, like about like their nationality or where they're from, because that helps me so I don't have any bias. I want to see you when you come in. And I'm gonna ask you questions. That's my own little strategy that I do. Right. So it just depends, just individualized strategies, positive reinforcement for the family and the kid. Families want positive reinforcement too. Like families want to hear like they're doing good too. Like the kids want that positive reinforcement, but so does mom and dad. Sometimes they feel like they're doing everything wrong and nobody tells them, hey, so and so, you're doing great. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'll say one more.
Okay.
I'll say one more. And this one is my favorite, and I love it. It's parent support groups. Like, I think parent support groups are really, really important so that parents can have that community. They can call each other like, hey, can we have a play date? Let's work on this strategy together. They have similar goals. Maybe we can do this. So,
Yeah.
yeah, those are, I hope I didn't go on like a tangent out of
No.
that.
No. We are here to learn from you. I mean, I even want to ask you if you have lists like of examples of support groups, and even if you would want to
Yeah.
share that list, like if you would want to share the list with the audience.
Yeah.
Mm.
There's a app called Peanut.
Okay, Peanut. Okay,
I know. I don't know. Is
I'll
it
put
Peanut?
that in the show notes. Yeah.
But there's an app called Peanut, and people could it's like a mother group, like a stay at
Yeah.
home mom group that people can get into. I've referred my clients to it. Some of them use it and they meet other people through Peanut.
Oh,
So I
so
don't know. That's
yeah.
one that I know about. There's a couple of other ones in, Los Angeles that they'll have through the regional centers. Regional center is huge here. Um, and a lot of the school districts have them too. So it just depends, but I can definitely get a list of ones.
Yes. I'm not trying to add no extra work to your plate, Miss Jada.
No, no, I could try
If
to get
you
a
are
list.
looking to, yes, I think that would be incredibly helpful. One thing that I think is so interesting how you said that you don't ask about their nationality and you really do take an individual approach. That is so interesting because I know that that is completely different from what even you and I have learned when it's come
Right,
to culture responsive treatment. But
right,
I do appreciate that. Like if you truly are being intentional with knowing the family as individuals rather than the culture that they wear.
right. Well,
At
I asked, like, when you get the case history, right, and it has all this stuff, I ignore that. I don't look at that.
Oh, I see what you
When
mean.
they
You
come
still
in,
ask.
right, when they come
Okay.
in,
Okay.
then we can, I can discuss that, and I'll let them talk a little bit about it. Some of them mention it and some of them don't. I've had some families that say, yeah, I'm Mexican, but I don't attest to these beliefs, or so again, it's better than me looking straight at it. Oh, they're Mexican, so they're gonna do.
Oh,
Oh, they're
right.
black.
Making assumptions.
Like, no, I'm not gonna assume. So I'll wait till they come, and then we can discuss that. And okay, what do you do at home, and how do you think that plays a part? And
Mhm.
yeah, rather than me already having this like little nugget in my head, I try to ignore that nugget
And I just
until
want
they come in. Till they come in, then
to
we'll discuss it. Yeah.
and I just want to say, just to like piggyback off of what you're saying, because I know that we are going to have some grad students watching this, and so I just want to make sure that we're clear. So yes, take
Yes.
the case history, do the full case history
Yes.
of their social information,
Of
their cultural
course.
information. But what Miss Jada is saying, and please feel free to correct me, is still look at them as individuals
Right. Right.
and ask them questions. Do not make assumptions, but
Right.
ask
Right.
them, just ask them. Because I know when I was in Belize doing screeners for Beyond the Label, for example, there were we were doing like idiom tests for the screeners because we have
Hmm.
like fifth graders. And I genuinely, I mean, they speak English in Belize, but I genuinely didn't know if some idioms they even, that they would say in their culture versus our culture. So I just asked instead of saying, "Oh, they must not say this in Belize because it's
Exactly.
Belize, obviously it's another culture." But
Exactly.
if I took that attitude, Jada, I would have been incorrectly scoring because when I asked them, they're like, "Oh yeah, yeah, of course we say that." And
Right.
so I'd rather be embarrassed for even just asking and thinking there's a difference rather than not asking.
Right. Then assuming, and I it's gotten me, and I think parents love that. They love that I don't assume, and they love that I ask questions, and I ask questions about their culture. And you're right. I love that you're correcting it. I'm not telling you not to take that into consideration. I would never say that. I'm
Right.
just saying when I'm reading it prior to them coming into my office, I don't look at that like as a, oh, they're going to do this, like a precursor for who they are. No, I
Mhm.
don't. When they come in, then that's when we can discuss some of that and what cultural practices, stuff that they do at home, blah, blah, blah. And then I have a better depiction because, like I've said, I've had clients and I've had people say this, like, oh, well, they're a Mexican family, so I'm sure they do this and this. That, babe, that's not true. Like, don't
Yeah.
say that because I wouldn't want somebody to say that about me and my culture. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? That doesn't mean that I attest to everything in my cultural background. So, yeah, that's just my little soapbox. That's what I do. And yeah, you'll learn things in grad school. And then when you go out and become your own clinician, you'll start to modify things or do things your way. You're your own individual, you're your own person, own clinician, as long as you're being culturally competent and following Asher. You know what I mean?
Mhm, right. Let's put
Right.
that out
Let's
there.
put that out there. But
Yeah.
you might do things a little bit differently. So
Well, let me ask you this then. Have there been any barriers that you faced in applying these practices, or really just any barriers at all that you've noticed when intervening with Caribbean populations and families?
any barriers?
Mhm.
Um, a lot of Caribbean people don't like to open up and tell people their business. And I am very similar. I grew up in a household where we keep what we have going on in our house and nobody needs to know our business. So when it comes into doing like the case history and wanting to know more, you could feel hesitation from some people. Like, why are you asking me that? Why are you doing too much? You know what I mean? They feel that. They feel like you're like intruding on their like family and their business, and they don't want people to use that against them. So I think that's the biggest thing, like the comfortability of
Mm,
revealing certain things. And then you'll be like, why didn't they reveal that in the beginning? That would have helped me a lot. But then
yeah.
you have to understand that they weren't comfortable with you yet. And that's okay. And also like cultural, I have my students in Trinidad. I see the difference of my students in Trinidad versus my American counterparts that give services. They're way more open with the students in Trinidad because they're Caribbean like
Mhm.
themselves,
Mhm.
and they grew up learning about Trinidad. They feel more connected to Trinidad as a whole than maybe America.
Mm,
So it's I think the barriers is just honestly comfortability.
mm,
That's just the biggest barrier. Everything else, not, I don't see it as a barrier, but that comfortability piece is very, very important because we need to know certain things for the case history so that we can, have a good plan for them, a
Mm,
good plan of care. And if you're not revealing certain things, then, it kind of does impede on that process. But I don't fault them for it. It's a cultural thing. So, yeah, that's one of the barriers that I do see a lot, a lot, a lot. And some of my clinicians have told me about it. They're
mm,
like, Jada, I don't feel like the parent likes me. No, 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 it's not that. They're not comfortable yet. It's not a you thing. Don't stop it. People need to stop internalizing sometimes the client. Don't internalize it. Sometimes it's not you. Sometimes it's something they're dealing with. You know what I mean? But I
mhm.
know it's hard not to, like,
Yeah.
take it personally. But sometimes it's not a personal thing. It's just they're not comfortable. You know what I mean?
And also I think, I mean, there's a thousand things running through my head, Jada, but another thing is to recognize that the parents are also still processing the fact that they have to take their kids to speech therapy or whatever services. They're still processing the fact that they're still going through those fears and doubts about themselves and everything. And so sometimes it's projected onto the therapist. That's the first thing I
Exactly.
mentioned, and thank you for co-signing that. The second thing is that there's medical distrust also when it comes to
Right.
certain people from I mean, even within when I was in Belize, within Belize, there was that medical distress. I had a parent say, and mind you, the parent wanted her kid to get services. She brought
Mm-hmm.
the child in to the pediatrician, and to me, of course, we're not certified to diagnose autism, but
Right.
I saw all of the characteristics, and
Mm-hmm.
he was just like, "Well, the pediatrician said that this is normal for her age," and obviously, a mother's intuition knows, you know.
Right.
And so I can tell that she was miffed because I'm like, no, I actually would refer her to get further evaluation. Um, so I want to ask you this question.
Yeah, those are, I love that. I love that you brought that up. I love that you brought that up. That's
Yeah.
good. Because I'm going to see the barriers a little bit differently, because again, they're going to have a little bit more trust with me. I'm Caribbean descent. So
Hmm.
I can't speak like my counterparts, like maybe what they might go through, because I don't go through that. So I don't like speaking on things I don't go through. But that is a really good one. That distrust. They're
Yeah.
like, what? That
Mm,
can't be true. Or no, they don't believe it. Or some of them trust too much. They trust too easily. That's also another one, where anything that somebody says from the US or the UK or wherever, they believe it right away and they internalize it.
mhm.
You know what I mean? Because there's not a lot of resources. And I'm speaking for Belize.
Yes.
I know this, like, I can't speak for
Caribbean.
everybody, everyone else. Yeah.
Right, 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 right. Yeah. And I also thank you for saying that. I'll have to put the disclaimer at the beginning of the episode on the podcast.
Right. Because I don't know about the other Caribbean countries. I know a little bit, tads, about Trinidad and Cayman, but I don't know everywhere. So I don't want to speak for everywhere. I'm just speaking for my experience in Belize.
Well, I do know that I know that Ebony Green, she's the CEO of SLP Solutions, or SLP CEO Solutions, the school contracts masterclass.
Mm-hmm.
And she just took her team to Belize. And so I love that because there's a lot more women of color SLPs going to Belize or going to these Caribbean islands doing
Right.
services. But
Right.
this one big question that I want to ask you, Miss Jada, is how would you go about, and even what do you tell your supervisees about building those genuine relationships up front? So, yes, to active listening.
Mm-hmm.
How can we make that connection with parents who are a little hesitant to give us information that we need for an accurate diagnosis?
I honestly tell them to be themselves. Stop trying
Mm,
to be anybody else. Stop trying to uh be yourself. Just be yourself. And I also tell my students, not every client you have is, how do you say this? I'm trying to say to be like politically correct. Not everybody's going to like you, and that's also okay. I could be an amazing clinician. I have all these accolades, blah blah blah, and somebody still might not like me or like my method. And
yeah.
that's okay. It has nothing to do with me. We just don't connect,
Mm,
and that's all right. And I tell my students that, and a lot of them love to hear that, because they're like, I internalize it. But my main thing is, time, patience, being yourself. maybe sharing some things about you, or sharing some of your like past experiences with other clients, but not using their name or whatever, but just sharing, and parents will soon feel comfortable, and they'll be like, oh, okay, blah blah blah. You build that rapport. But I think the biggest thing is like time and patience. Time and patience. You cannot just meet them right now and then expect for them to tell you their whole life story. Now, I do have some clients that do that.
We have that too, right?
I have someone that maybe they were waiting to talk to somebody about their life. But
Yeah.
then you have some other ones that it takes some time for them to like build up, and you just don't take it personal. So that's what I tell them. It's like my advice, my advice is super simple. I usually super simple. I don't, yeah, just be patient with them and put yourself in their perspective. How would you feel? This person is coming online, telling me all these things. I'm already overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And, just put yourself in their shoes, and how the kid sometimes is running off the computer and
Yeah.
running around and crying. And then there's embarrassment. Then there's anger. There's a lot of emotions. Just put yourself in their shoes and just have empathy. And I think they'll feel that genuine connection. If it's genuine, you want to be genuine. Some people aren't genuine. You want to be genuine about it. And usually they'll open up. I see like my grad students and the families, like maybe month 2, they are having a great relationship, to the point where I exit when they start talking about their personal stuff, because that's not my business.
Mm-hmm.
So they want to go into that. Oh, have a great day, guys. See you next week. Session is over. If you want to continue, that's their time to build their relationship, not for me to listen in on their business. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
And I'm sure that that speaks volumes for yourself and
Right,
your
right,
program too. That you're willing to step away and let them just handle it. So that
right, right, right.
build trust. Well, Jada, one thing I do just want to share one last story, and then of course I'll let you go because I know you got things to do as well.
No, no.
Um, there's one story that's sticking out to me when I was in Belize. There was a mother who her child is selective mutism, so she was like, sometimes my kid talks too much, but when she's in social settings, when she's at school, she doesn't talk at all. And
Mm,
this mother was heartbroken because she just lost her mother. So the child's grandma, she just lost her mother, and she was tending to her mother. Um,
mm-hmm,
but you can correct me if I'm wrong. But I just figured that it's a huge cultural thing. I mean, even I just think about Black families specifically. Like, we're gonna take care of our grandparents, of the elders in the family, when they're transitioning out. And so
right.
she was just like, I was just so depressed, and I just wasn't taking care of my baby. And so already I'm hearing language like self blame, and she was crying, you know.
Yeah.
And so
Um,
and what I did, I'll tell you what I did, and then I'll ask how you would handle the situation.
yeah.
I active listened, I nodded, and then I looked her in her eyes, and I'm just like, you didn't do anything wrong.
Oh,
You didn't do anything wrong. You are doing exactly what you're meant to do right now, bringing your child here to the screener. You
right,
anything. Do not blame yourself for this.
right, right,
And
right,
I
right.
just want to know, and again, I don't know if this is necessarily cultural, but I mean, I do know that there are cultures where, the mother, the matriarch, and the patriarchs, we hold them so high to where it's like it's the patriarch and then it's our children. It's a
Mhm.
matriarch and then it's our children, and it's almost like on a subconscious level we don't even realize we're doing it. And I feel like this was this mother's story where she didn't realize she was doing it until it's too late, or she feels like it's too late, and now her child's not
Um,
speaking. And so how would you have approached this with this parent?
I would have the same approach, like like yourself, active listening and reassuring. And I'm actually surprised that she opened up. Also, tidbit about Belize. A lot of Belizeans aren't affectionate. I'm not affectionate. I actually don't like people really hugging on me that easily.
I
It
don't
was a running joke in grad school, but
think
it's actually like a real
Same.
life thing. Yeah, I don't really like people touching me and like hugging. That's like in my culture is very much so like they're kind of. Mm, mm. So
Yeah.
the fact that she even like cried in front of you and showed that, because I had a similar situation when I was there, but the parent, she was trying to laugh, and I do that too. I try
Mm,
to laugh or joke about it, but deep down I'm like really hurt. But
mm,
her laughter turned into like actual tears. You know
mhm.
what I mean? Um, so I'm shocked that just opened up like that. I think that's great that she obviously trusted you.
And I'll be honest, I guess just as far as the looks go, because of course I do my best to open up a welcoming and safe environment for the families. But I look to Belizean. People are asking me about, they look at my complexion and they think I'm from Belize or Africa, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
I
So they
think
already assume, yeah, they
I
already
think
assume
that that's what really made the difference.
made
But
the difference, right? So then she's like, oh, okay, well, I feel a little bit more, and you're black, and they don't see a lot of black therapists
yeah,
that do come to Belize are majority white.
yeah,
So then when they do see a black therapist, they're like, oh wow, okay. Even for myself, I'm Garifuna, so a lot of people are shocked, like a Garifuna. Oh, okay. But how you approached it, I would do the same thing. I would listen and tell her, don't blame yourself. I understand. I don't have kids, so I can only imagine how you feel.
yeah.
Only imagine how you feel. I'm not gonna sit here and say I know how you feel because that's
Right.
disingenuous. I don't. But I can imagine how much hurt you have like in this situation. And I'm here to help you. And you can share as much as you want and as little as you want. I am not here to judge. And I think a lot of parents just love that. And some of them will continue to share and some of them will stop. And when they're ready, then I'll be open to listen again. And then we can, come up with a plan. Okay, now we know how you feel. Okay, how can we move forward? What's our next plan from here? So what
Mhm.
can we do and what can I do? What can I offer you or who can I connect you with in Belize or wherever? So that would have been how I would have responded with I understand, I empathize, I'm listening, but now let's move to like where we can come up with a solution. Let's not just stay here. Let's
Right.
move past this and now let's not past it like ignoring it, none of that, but
It's solutions based.
let's have a solution now to
Yeah.
it and work together as a team because I don't want you to feel alone in this process. It
Mm.
is a very scary process. So that would have been my next like steps. But I know that you were just there like volunteering, so you couldn't give that next like step. But that's what I would do.
And I mean, really, I did. I said, we will,
Get
well,
back to you.
yeah, but we'll get back to you.
Yeah.
I'll point you to the director, and we'll follow up with you. And these are the next steps. So,
Yeah.
I really do also like how you said, I don't want you to feel alone in this process. That
Mm-hmm.
that is key. I really like that.
Yeah. It
Well,
is a
Jada,
very scary process.
it
So
is, especially if you're, and it was her only child. That was her only child too. So
wow.
yeah, I know
Yeah.
she had a lot of grief. But Jada, is there anything else that you would like to share about autism intervention with multicultural families? Just anything that's on your heart and mind at this moment.
Um, let me think. There's nothing necessarily on my mind, but I just want to say this. I want to thank you for having me come on. I'm super excited for all your success. I love what you do. We all talk about you in the cohort, how Melanie is the one that is, the super speech pathologist. We love to see it. We love to see your growth and how many different people and professionals you have come on the show. I think that's really, really big. And you're bringing awareness and charity doesn't have to look the same. What I'm doing, you don't have to do. You could do something completely different. I have my blueprint, you have your blueprint. And I think people need to understand that. You don't have to follow people's blueprint. Now you can, but that doesn't mean that it's going to go the same way for you. And you have to be okay with that. Like what might work for me might not work for you. And charity doesn't have to look linear like the same. I think this is charity, right? Because I
Mm,
think you're giving advice to people and people are acquiring knowledge for free. You could be charging for this, girl, but
thank
people, you're not. You know what I mean? I could be charging for Beyond the Label, but I'm not. So I
you.
think this is a charity in itself. This is a way of you giving back and your purpose. So I just want to congratulate you on that and continue doing it. I know it must be tedious, but I'm sure a lot of people and a lot of grad students love looking at you and feel motivation. And I wish we had more people when I was in grad school or undergrad that I could have followed on Instagram and be like, I want to be like her, because I didn't really have that many people that I saw.
Yeah.
I had Dr. Belinda Doherty, shout out to her, but I
Yeah.
didn't have
I'll be
like a
meeting
lot
with her in November.
of.
I'll be meeting with Dr. Belinda Doherty in November.
Oh yes, yes, yes. That's I love her. I love her. But I didn't have past that. I didn't see like a big social media presence like we see now with like
Right.
you and other Black young speech language pathologists. Emphasis on the young, because you do want to see somebody a little bit close in age. Not saying about the older SLPs. I love my
We
older
love
SLPs.
them.
They're my aunties,
Yes.
but you want to see somebody like kind of in your age range, and you get a different type of sometimes motivation from that. So
Mm-hmm.
thank you, Melanie.
Oh, Jada, thank you so much for that. Thank you so, so, so much.
You're welcome.
How can we contact you? I'm sure that there are so many people listening to this on replay who have questions, even
Mhm.
about how they can join Beyond the Label and the initiative. Where can we find you?
Well, I have my Instagram, Jada's Got Your Backpack. So you guys could follow that, and you could always DM me. I reply to messages really fast.
That's good.
So there's no complaints in that area. I'll respond really fast and give you my number, and then from there I give like all my contact, and I'm building up a website again. I have one for Jada's Got Your Backpack, but I don't have one for Beyond the Label, but I'm working on that. Baby steps, baby steps.
Baby
So I'll
steps.
get there. But yeah, just please DM me and follow us, and we would love to have you on the team, and maybe you'll come to Belize in like 3 years, because I'm not doing it anytime soon, but maybe the next cohort. So
Yes. And I also do want to say, y'all, if y'all know anyone who is an OT, right?
yes,
Yeah, OTs are also welcome. But yes, no, I'm happy.
occupational therapists and some, people that work in behavior. I know that's a little controversial, but people that work in behavior, BCBAs, some of the parents just want to hear some advice, like some parent trainings or some tips. We had two, but they actually got married. Shout out to Kelsey and Brandon. Congrats on
Oh,
that.
right. That is
But
really
we're
exciting.
looking for some new ones. So if you are interested, that's another route you can go.
Oh, well, thank you so, so, so
Thank
much,
you.
Jada. And thank you everyone else for coming to the replay. Please be sure to tune in next week. We have a surprise guest, Akila PhD on Instagram. She's deaf and hard of hearing, and she's going to give us some more insight on how we could be more culturally aware with that population.
Ooh, I love
Thank you,
that.
Jada.
All right. Thank